Welcome to Transforming Work with Sophie Wade, exploring the future of work. Find out what's going on in our multi-generational distributed organizations. With a new tech and talent focus, discover what you need to know to stay upskilled and relevant and ensure your business keeps its competitive edge.
Hi! This episode is about solving problems for people at and with their work. What problems are you trying to solve right now? Workplace policy, compliance, productivity, retention, engagement, project work, team flow. And what data are you gathering to help determine how to use technologies, especially AI, to complement and enhance how your teams are getting their work done, to improve results going forward? To discuss solving work problems, I'm delighted to be speaking with Ginger Dhaliwal, co-founder and chief product officer at Upflex. Ginger works and invests at the intersection of innovation and impact. Upflex is a platform that reshapes workspace access for distributed teams. Hi, Ginger. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to see you, Sophie.
It's very good to see you. A lot to cover, diving right in. What did you study at college?
My background is in social work. At the heart of everything that I do is about people. I grew up in Canada. I'm from Toronto originally, but I have a really diverse ancestry. So Malaysian
Okay.
born, Indian heritage, didn't quite fit in anywhere. And so social work was one of those areas
Okay.
that allowed me to kind of dig deeper to better understand people. And so, um, so I started working in social work, and a lot of the early work that I did was working with the Ontario government to reskill
Oh,
um,
okay.
new immigrants entering into the country.
And then you go from social work to working for an R&D lab in Malaysia. How did that connect?
It's a very long story, but I ended up traveling with my best friend to India. We
Hmm.
ended up in Singapore and we ended up in Malaysia. We both decided that we really loved Malaysia. I had family there, and the internet was just starting,
Hmm.
and so I got hired to at a consulting company that was bringing in sort of GSM telecom services into the Malaysian environment, and just being early in the industry
Hmm.
in that part of the world kind of gave me a step up, and it allowed me to kind of
Sure.
reinvent myself in many ways.
Well, you were responsible for launching a number of different early, very interesting
Mhm.
early products, which were to do with digital distribution, micropayments,
Mhm.
fixed wireless last mile, and personalized online services. This
Yeah.
extraordinary range of experiences you had that then must have been a platform for everything that you've done since.
I was in Malaysia. We had the support of the Malaysian government in a way. They wanted
Okay.
to create the Silicon Valley in Asia, Southeast Asia. And, timing is always so important. And we managed to raise a lot of money.
Okay.
And we were very young. The partner that I helped set up the R&D facility with started his first company at 16. And
Oh, okay.
Yes, super young. And he built the first websites for all the record labels. He also wanted to do something different. And I had known him for many years. Because I was already there, it became a really great launch pad. And he managed to raise a lot of money because by the time he was
Prior
19, he had a
experience.
huge track
Wow.
record.
Yes.
And what was amazing is we looked at each other and said, okay, what problems do we want to be solving for? And when we built this R&D facility, we decided to bring in talent from all around the world to solve really interesting problems. We got 10 years of free tax credits. We could bring
Okay.
visas. We got free visas for anyone from all around the world to
Oh,
bring into the
sure.
country.
Which makes a
And
difference. Yeah.
so we brought talent in from the US, we brought talent from India, talent from Malaysia, Ireland, and we kind of co located people. at various times. And we spent quite a bit of time thinking about problems that we wanted to solve and how technology could do that. And I think
Mm.
that gave me the confidence, I guess, in life to say, I don't need to know the answers to things as long as I'm constantly thinking about solving these
Oh, I
problems for
see.
people. And what we did was we would launch a new product every year, and then we would
Hmm.
spin it off as a separate company and entity.
Okay.
And then we would bring in management teams that had track records in the industry who would then
Okay.
take the company forward. So our first, and we still actually own a lot of these patents. We built the first sort of public advertising network that is tied to
Yes,
a
of it.
device called Street Space. And that was super exciting. We managed to hire the ex CEO of Sony to run it, and we raised quite a bit of money. So we were able to kind of do these mini startups like Venture
Right.
Studio. And I didn't even know what the name of it. Now we have terms for a lot of this stuff. But back then I
Yep.
was like, oh my God, 20-year-old, trying to solve the world's problems.
So how did you deal with that with relating to micropayments?
One of the things that we learned early on was that more and more people needed to transact online. And credit cards, entering your credit cards online was a issue. And
Mm.
most people in that part of the world don't even have credit cards, but they have telephone numbers. And
Sure.
so
Yeah.
when we were thinking about accessibility, and
It was all phone based.
it's
Yep.
all phone based. And so we wanted to create a way for people to be able to transact
Mm.
using their telephone bill, like telephone provider, and give the telephone companies an opportunity to get into this space. So
So that was not an easy challenge to solve, problem to solve.
a bunch of 20-year-olds going to Telecom Malaysia or any operator and saying, hey, we have an idea for you.
We
And
got a solution.
yeah, today they have accelerators and things like that. But back then they're
Right.
like, what are you talking about? But we did manage to convince Telecom Malaysia to be able to implement this. And it was challenging with that particular product. If you go to India today, it's just happening now. So we were, 20 years too early, but the telephone providers now, like the UPay, I think it's called UPay, is like the way that people transact. And if you think of WeChat, it's all happening on your phone, right? But I think the most meaningful product that I ever got to build, which led me to what I'm doing now with Upflex, was we were trying to solve the healthcare problem in Southeast Asia. There was a huge diabetes is a huge issue, right? And a lot of
Ah, okay.
people live in remote towns, and so we started deploying because of our telecom background. We built a healthcare server that we deployed at in internet cafes to then allow
Oh,
recipients to come in, and then we connected it to a care provider on the mainland.
oh, that's
And we
great.
took that technology and then we brought it to the US market. And in the US market, our goal was to enable aging people to live safer at home. Um, and we partnered up with AT&T. We built the largest ecosystem of connected devices. And this is 2010. It was super early.
So
So
this
we
is the
took
beginning of the Internet of Things.
Yes, yeah. And so we connected up your biometric data, your sensor data. So we had like sensors in the house, temperature control because a lot of aging people can't control their body temperature and they don't know when it's cold. And we pushed all this into a cloud environment. So think SaaS, like 2010, it was like just happening. And the goal was for $99, you could actually help keep your family member, aging parent at home safer. And the longevity of enabling them to do that is so much higher than putting them in a nursing home. And it was
Right.
heartbreaking because the number, we couldn't get people to pay for it, and you would think that they would. And so we pivoted and we started working with home care agencies. So we would go in and we built some amazing tech to detect like Alzheimer's. Like there's like peak times when you should visit based on games that we created. We had your medication management system all integrated.
Wow.
We had like it was insane like what we built, but it was a perfect example where we overbuilt because spent
Okay.
so many years in R&D to then launch something in the market where there wasn't the iteration of
Sure.
understanding what people's appetite was for all of this. And one of the key takeaways from that experience was loneliness was the number one cause of hospitalizations for elderly and medication management. And that like
Mm.
was like such an eye opener for me. And we could tell based on because we had sensors in the home, we were able to tell the number of visits that they were getting at home, um,
Ooh.
if they were watching TV late at night,
Yeah.
all of these indicators. And these are like more predictive of the behavior, whereas
Hmm.
biometric data is like a lagging indicator because your weight has gone up, your blood pressure has gone up,
Sure.
but it's all
Okay.
this other stuff that matters, right?
You were at Embedded Wireless
Wireless.
Labs. You spent several years there. Why did you then leave, and what was that to do next? What were the next things? You've obviously been also investing
Yeah.
over the recent years in different AI related startups and other technology based ventures.
Especially in the sort of the healthcare project that I worked on, we raised about $10 million and we couldn't scale it. We were doing lots and lots of pilots and we couldn't find investors to invest in it. And it was just too early again.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking because when we did deploy this equipment, we actually had a lot of congestive heart failure patients on the equipment, but the nurses and doctors didn't care for the data. They only wanted certain types of data. And so you're in this environment where you really truly want to help people, but the people who
Right.
are making those decisions are not willing to take the initiative to even look at the data that actually could have a more holistic, coordinated approach to care. And I think I just got burnt out. I was going through similar things with working 100% at home. I was feeling lonely. My network started to shrink because I was hanging out with elderly people all the time. So my network just turned very different. And then I started looking around and I started asking myself questions like, so much of our identity is based on the work that we do. And if the work that we do is what is going to make us, and I'm always future thinking. So I was like thinking, AI is going to happen, like all this evolution
Right.
of technology is happening. Like, what can I do today to maybe get ready for the ultimate, like whatever is going to happen 5 years or 10 years
Sure.
from now?
Okay.
And that's kind of what led me down the path of starting Upflex.
What was Upflex founded for? And you co-founded it. Was it the same co-founder? How did that all happen?
So when I was working on the healthcare, I needed to get out of the house. And so I was connected to Christophe Garnier, who's my co-founder and the CEO of Flex. He had a co-working space here in the US, and he was looking to scale. And I introduced him to some investors, and he was able to open a second location. And as I was working on the healthcare project, I needed a place to escape to. And so I would go to
Okay.
his co working space. And I
Right.
loved it. I loved the energy of the space. And I loved the fact that you had people from different industries working and co located. Because I
I know.
know that,
Yeah.
I'm an innovator. So I know that if I can bring people from this industry and this industry together,
Yeah.
you're more likely to invent something that you never thought of, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so that really excited me, and I realized that co-working as a model for innovation and ideation is such a wonderful thing, and it's in your backyard. And now, it's a block away from where you live. And so I'm so excited about the fact that there's more places that you can go to escape the loneliness of working 100% from home.
I'm assuming from what I've read is it's not just ones that you own or have leased. It is facilitating access across all kinds of other workspaces, co-working workspaces all over the world that you have arrangements with. How what was the vision that you saw then for why that network was going to be necessary? Because this is before the pandemic and before people were digital nomading and that type of stuff. I mean, there were lots of people who are working in different places, well before the pandemic, to have that vision that this is the network that's going to be important. And how did that evolve, and how did it not evolve in some of the ways that you thought it would be, pandemic and not pandemic related?
And people were already working remotely back then, and I
Sure.
learned my lesson with the healthcare project that I wanted to get in front of companies early. So we got in front of the Nokia's innovation team because they were looking to get access to co-working spaces as they were launching 5G. They needed to get like content providers that would kind of create applications on this platform. And as we were speaking to them, it became very clear that they had retention, recruitment
Issues, yeah.
problems very early on. Gave us the understanding of what we needed to build in order to really deliver to a customer like a Nokia or a Zoom or an IBM. Because a lot of it is about cost controls. It's about, there's trust there, but they still need to contain their costs, right? And if you
Sure.
think about, and for Christoph and I, we're both about sustainability. How do we create a more sustainable lifestyle for people, looking at the data, people losing 15 days of their lives commuting just didn't make any sense to us.
Yes.
And so looking at both angles, and then, we started looking at the ecosystem around real estate, and they lacked data. A lot of these decisions about
Sure.
real estate was based on like, we're going to have a headcount of X in 5 years or 10 years. So we need a space of X, which is not utilized correctly. And so all of that kind of went into a decision of like, yeah, this makes sense as a company, more as companies become, and future thinking, companies are going to become more flat. There's a lot more uncertainty in the world. Real
Sure.
estate
Yeah.
is such a big cost
And the
on your
leases
budget.
are such long contracts, yeah. So,
Yeah. And so, what could you do with that money that could be more effective in reaching your goal, like financial goals, your people goals, and how could you reuse and invest that money to get you ready for the future?
so the conversation you were having then were with the likes of Nokia and other larger
Mhm.
companies, knowing where we are now. I don't want to fast forward, but
Mhm.
knowing where we are now in terms of how these companies were already in pockets thinking about how to think about real estate differently, understanding more about the dynamics of space, what it could do, what the purpose of it was. So there was already sensitivity and thought behind this,
Mhm.
right?
In that ecosystem is the people within the organizations. Then you have the real estate brokers on top of
Right.
it, and then you have the landlords, right? And they all have different motivations,
Sure.
and so what we wanted to do was create that data layer, just like I did in healthcare, that we can create that data layer so that people can actually make decisions based on data, and understanding what those preferences and how people are using space. And, when we went out, people were like, oh, this is a nice to have. It's a perk. And you're like, flexibility is a real strategy. Like, you have to mobilize around this because it allows you to retain, recruit, and
Right.
get the output that you need from your people. And then COVID hit. And honestly, Sophie, we spoke to every single company during COVID because we were so early. And then we also have our eco partners like space partners, and even they didn't understand the opportunity. So we've actually had to work really hard to get everyone aligned in this process.
It's interesting to me because again, just like with a healthcare situation, that just because you have the data doesn't mean that people either want to see it, when they
Mhm.
see it, they want to really make the effort to understand it. And it's not pejorative, it's not criticism, it's just that's what I have seen in many different situations. So COVID maybe was a time where people were sort of forced to look at that data because it was such a different situation. Would that be one conclusion that you would take of the last of sort of 2020 to 2023 plus, in terms of how people then started finally looking to see with the Great Resignation and all those other lovely labels?
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because when you talk about data, it has to be a stepped approach, right? What we did was during COVID, the ask was, do you know whether or not people are willing to leave the house? Let's give them this offering
Oh,
and test
okay.
it. Okay, how far are they willing to travel? Are they willing to bring another teammate? Are they then, what are their
So the
preferences?
very different frames of reference
Yes.
for each person, which then caused the people in the office or in leadership to have to think about this so differently.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we help them go down this process of re-entry back into maybe a more structured hybrid. When they do that, um, you know, are people showing up? How often are they showing up? Why are they showing up? And so we're trying to answer those questions with the data. A lot of what happens with data is you get slammed with all these charts and stuff, but you're not
Right. Right.
asking the questions, and you're trying to move people. It's like like when you're building product, it takes 9 months to have a baby, but you can't just go
Right.
from like month one to like having a baby, right? Like you have
Sure.
to slowly walk them through that journey to and make it kind of relevant. And I think that's where the unlocking happened for us, speaking to a lot of these bigger players, because they just didn't have a way of even testing those questions. And we were like an easy way to do that, and then collect the data and then make a different, like use that for decision making to make the next set of questions, and then so on and so forth.
Workplace flexibility as the umbrella for all different types of flexible working that isn't 9 to 5 in the office was something that I got into in 2011. Looking at technology going to cause us to need to be flexible, which includes location.
Yeah.
Okay, that's like a no-brainer. This is where we're
Yes.
going. It has been extraordinary how, in my words, how we've got bogged down with location. And it isn't
Yes.
about location, it's about
No.
control, it's about how we've been working, it's about being challenged by dealing with so many different changes going on at the same time, which I totally understand. All this different data that you've been gathering and the different questions and location, this incremental location as being to do with safety and venturing out and the different interactions you've had. How did you see location as being a marker in terms of work? For me, it's one of those things that enables people to work better or not,
Mhm.
or work better depending on what they're doing. But there's so many different aspects to it that you have got really deep into from a very different perspective. And I'm very interested if you could share some of that, because it to
Oh.
help explain why so many people are focused still on location and
Mhm.
not, I find, not helping people adapt to all the other things that are changing instead.
That's a fantastic question. So when we started Upflex, there was a company called Work, WERK, that was started by Annie Dean.
I remember,
Before,
yep.
yeah, and that's where a lot of my sort of paradigm shift happened, because when she was talking about flexibility, it's flexibility about time. It's flexibility incorporates lots of different understandings, right? Location is one of many things that people need in their lives to be flexible, right? Especially since now we're working on multiple time zones, your teammates are everywhere in the world. Like flexibility And I think you're absolutely right. So many people get bogged down by location, and location is one aspect of this really more nuanced term. We're on the on-demand side, but we're also now getting into the corporate offices. So we're creating one platform that allows you to see your data across all of your real estate assets. And what's really interesting is the behavior that you see on the on-demand side is similar to the behavior that you see on what you see when you go see people go to the office, right?
So
What we're
explain that a bit.
so, for example, Tuesdays and Thursdays, people are using on demand or they're going into their offices. Like the behavior patterns are the same. A lot of the behavior patterns that we're seeing now versus like maybe even 2 years ago, is that there's less use of desks and more use of meeting rooms has increased. And we're seeing this across all continents because we're global, we're in 125 countries. We're seeing an uptick in the Asia Pac area when it comes to meeting room bookings on our network, which is more about collaboration, which is also the trend that you're seeing in your own corporate offices. So I think the on demand industry is mimicking the similar behavior that you're seeing in the office space. A lot of people actually have to really think about their schedules to then make the space in their schedule to travel to work or to a co-working space, and that those are decisions that people have to make. And what we find in our data is that most bookings are happening on the day of the booking, right? So guest bookings are happening on the day of the booking, whereas meeting rooms, when people are making meeting room bookings, they're 4 to 5, 7 days out. So they're planning that. It's a planned event. So it's
Right.
purpose driven. And so it's really interesting to kind of look at the data. And now that we're starting to get more data about the corporate experience, we can kind of match it back out to the on demand side.
Collaboration as being a mostly in-person thing that we have particularly done in the past. It's got a long tail on it.
Yeah.
I think as we get better tools and there are a lot more features and functionality to the likes of Zoom and Teams and all the rest of it, and you have, Miro, and you have whiteboards, and people really start leaning in and using those more effectively, that collaboration can be done in different places, including in person. As a friend of mine also pointed out, she was like, how I had to do was doing this in-person stuff, and I couldn't take notes because normally I have AI taking notes, and so I had to take notes, and I couldn't focus in the same way.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. So how we choose to collaborate. The aspect for me though is that I focus on is that we need to be learning how to schedule, how to design our work day and our work week.
A lot of office space today is designed for productivity, right? And it's shifting to collaboration. And what's interesting about co-working spaces, it's designed for that too, but also relationships. And I think the evolution as we, future thinking is we're all going to be craving relationships. It's not the collaboration that you're going for. You're going for the
Oh,
relationships. Uh,
absolutely. And you can't collaborate well and you can't be productive if you don't have the relationships. That's why all my empathy stuff is. So you have to
mhm.
start with the relationships.
Going back to what you were saying, we're going to be able to collaborate so much better using technology than we are going to in person in some ways, because you have the Miros and then you have the Zooms and you have the audit recording.
What are some of the things that you are seeing now in terms of how co-working is being used differently than before the pandemic? SMEs that are using it in different ways because they really have leaned into the flexibility. Are the things that have really surprised you, positively and negatively?
We work with some amazing companies, and they surprise us every day with what they want to do. And a lot of companies now are doing team days where they're actually getting multiple meeting rooms, multiple desks, and everyone's coming in and out of the space. Power School, one of our clients, has created these power pods where they all, if you're in a
Okay.
particular area, you can all come together. And companies are hiring in clusters of area. And what we found is
Oh.
that if you have 25 people or less, or 50 people or less, having a co-working membership is probably better. If
Mm-hmm.
you and you know, when you get 50, then more of a long-term lease in a
Okay.
co-working space makes more
Right.
sense, right? And so they have clusters of people all around the US. And so
Mm-hmm.
those clusters get together, and then they have their town hall meetings where they all dial into a Zoom. So even though you might be in Scarsdale, or you might be like,
Sure.
in London, or different parts of London or the UK, you can all dial in, and you're not alone. You're not doing this alone. You have your
Mm-hmm.
teammates there that are close
Like it.
close by, an hour's drive coming in, and you're
Mm-hmm.
having these experiences. And then that those teams then do something later in the evening as like a
Nice.
and so we're seeing a lot more of that. What we've also done is, in many ways, Upflex is a technology company. And
Mm-hmm.
so we brought in Corinne Murray, Andre, and Derek Newberry as a part of our advisory team. And we're really thinking more deeply of helping our clients to think about how you leverage distribution,
Mm-hmm.
as like a workforce strategy, but still
Mm-hmm.
create that cohesion and
Sure.
relationships in market. And that's really interesting. Like that I didn't, I there was a whole conversation about hub and spoke previously,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
where you're going to have all these people in a permanent office, and that's happening. People are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Companies are making that choice. But I think there's this also cost savings where they want to do like, um, it's almost like timeshare of a
Oh,
space,
okay.
where they don't need it full time because their people don't need to be there full time, but they're looking to have something like twice a month, and they
Right.
need lots of
I've come
different types of.
across a couple of companies that have that. They sort of swap the space with another company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like all these different types of combinations, which allows, say, two companies to know each other and actually not necessarily know each other because they don't necessarily overlap at all. But they're using the same space as sort of part of the same community, and thinking about work differently. Just thinking
Mhm.
outside of that box, but with that box, and just looking at all the different ways that we can use locations. Okay, now the pandemic's behind us. We now can be thinking about, we're being forced, AI is forcing us to design work to try and understand where we put AI in. It's actually pushing some of the things that are actually very helpful when we're thinking about where and how we're working and to optimize every single person. That work design also includes location. So are you having different conversations with corporates? You think there may be an emerging trend, that we can look
Yeah.
ahead to?
One of the problems that we're trying to solve for, at Upflex, is that companies have downsized so much that they're at that base, like they're so flat now, right? And the moment there's a peak, they don't know what to do with that. And so
Okay.
what we're working with, is with landlords to figure out how you can create those overflow spaces, and be
Interesting.
able to, from a corporate standpoint, be able to not build for the peak, but build for the average, and then have the resources or the unlocking
Interesting.
of the network to handle the overflow. I hear so many like people, especially in New York, who work for financial service companies, right? And they're like, I don't even have a desk to sit at. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm not coming in, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So they haven't really, like, there is this mandate. I don't think there are mandates that are out there, right, where people want them to
Sure.
come back,
Yeah.
but they're not actually able to service those employees in the right way. And they can't actually dynamically figure out what's going to happen any given day. And that's
Mm,
where AI becomes really exciting. And that's the stuff that we're working on. And
great.
one of the things that is one of the biggest friction points is like booking engines, actually.
Mm,
And so we're creating the ability to dynamically assign seats to create the efficiency that you need when you have the space already optimized.
mm,
What do you do? And that's where the unlocking of the network becomes really helpful because you can start thinking about,
sure.
which people need to be in the office, which could actually use the co-working space just down the street, blah, blah, blah.
This is a really interesting, very dynamic time that we all need to understand so that we can provide the services and make this sort of balanced and work for everybody.
It's like the AWS cloud services, right? That's
Mm,
essentially what we're doing. It's like when you need more, say, cloud,
right.
you know, storage, you expand it,
Sure.
and when you don't need it, you kind of dismantle it, and then you don't have that overhead as a
Right.
business. And and my hope is that the businesses will take that savings and reinvest it in people's reskilling, because that is a
Mm.
bigger
Oh my
issue
goodness.
that I'm really
Huge.
super worried about. Because I was saying this years ago, where I think we're getting to a point where, in a year from now, I know 30% of what I need to know to do my job effectively. And that's really, really scary and overwhelming for people. So, what are organizations going to do about this? And how are they going to invest in this? Because we have a
Yep.
workforce that's going to be constantly being outdated because the technology is moving so rapidly.
I don't think it's avoidable for companies to be investing more in their employees. Appreciate you raising that. For a company that is thinking about co-working spaces, that is thinking about location spaces more flexibly, wondering, looking, 2, 3 years down the line, and just saying like, now I'm starting to think about work in a different way, or location in a different way. What are the first 2 or 3 things that you suggest that they can be thinking about to really sort of open up the thought process of how can we organize this better? How can we set up people to have flexibility in where they work, how they're working, how they're getting together? What would you advise?
Corinne actually talks about this quite often, and it's iterative, right? What we're facing today, there is no playbook. I mean, people like Annie Dean, Atlassian, and Allison at Dropbox, they're helping us think about it. But the reality is, there is no playbook. And the only thing that you can do when there's uncertainty is to come up with questions to then test. And so when we work with companies, we're like, okay, this doesn't have to be a complete strategy overhaul of your organization. Let's look at a particular market. Let's start with like a small market in a particular geography, where, like, I just had this conversation with a PE company yesterday, and she was like, our utilization in our office is like 20-30%. We have people in Montreal. We're actually using a co-working space, but it looks like they're only coming in once a week. And I'm like, but they have offices, like they have 350 people around the world, in Sydney, India, Montreal, and Toronto. And
Interesting.
I'm like, let's start with something small. Let's figure out like what we can do to solve this, get the
Okay.
buy-in. Because when we first launched Upflex and we were working with some of these bigger companies, people were pissed off when their office was taken away from them, or their desk was taken away, because they're so used to identify with that, right? This is my desk, these are my pictures, this is and the moment you take those sort of things away, not everyone can adjust to it, right? And
And
so
it can feel like my job is less secure because I don't have that my desk, my identity. Yeah.
a lot of this is not like massive overhaul. It's like
Yeah.
start iteratively and test it, understand the results of it. The data is there to give you the feedback that you need, and then grow it, and expand, right? And that, I think, is the only thing that you can do as an organization when there's so much uncertainty. You don't even know what your workforce is going to look like in 5 years from now. So,
No,
like,
it's going to be blended, and it's going to have humans and non-humans. It's going to have employees and lots of
yeah.
non-employees. Exactly. So that's a great advice. I love that idea in terms of finding the questions and starting incrementally, solving some of the problems. Because for an organization like you just described, there are many different aspects to that. So trying to sort of work out where to start and do it step by step. Ginger, so interesting to hear your journey, all the things that you've done, and how both people and technology, I'm always about technology and talent, how people and technology have really featured so heavily in everything that you're doing. I'm excited to see how things evolve and what the future holds for Upflex and other things and all these other ventures that you've already invested in, and are helping advise and pull the future forward,
Yes.
perhaps. So thank you very much indeed, Ginger. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sophie. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for the thoughtful questions. I was like, ooh, you got me thinking.
Thanks again so much to Ginger Dhaliwal, co-founder and chief product officer at Upflex. You can find out more about Ginger on LinkedIn, as well as go to Upflex's website. Immediate action tip. To solve work problems right now, there's no playbook. It's iterative. Come up with questions to test. Figure out a solution, get buy-in, and then gather data for feedback, refinement, and then you can grow it. With so much change at work, is your team burned out? Who might be cracking quietly? Do you need people re-energized and ready for the busy season? My new course, Empower High-Performing Teams, enhances leaders' skills to handle the challenges we are all facing, especially integrating AI to improve results. Check out modernworklife.co to find out more. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it and share it with a friend. You can also write a quick review wherever you watch or listen. For more curated, useful articles, research, and insights, please follow me on LinkedIn. And you can sign up for my Work in Progress newsletter at flexos.work. Thanks for watching. Until next time.